I'm Nick, and this is too much. This is way too much. This is a build guide. This isn't even a user guide. This has every possible combination for building in the MasterFrame 600. This is like the idiot's guide to the case. And while this sounds really good on paper, quite literally so much paper, it can make the whole experience with building in the MasterFrame 600 excruciatingly frustrating and, if I'm being honest, downright confusing. Anyway, let's take a look and you'll see exactly what I mean. Right from the jump, you'll notice that the MasterFrame 600 from Cooler Master, especially in the silver version, is absolutely gorgeous. In terms of the dimensions of the MasterFrame 600, it's 531 millimeters deep, 261 millimeters wide, and 544 millimeters tall, which means it's not quite square. Removing the panels is super easy. It's completely tool-free. You'll notice there is a sticker on the top left-hand side of the TG side panel, which shows you what to do, but you know, it's my job to show you that as well. To remove the front and the rear panel, it's exactly the same. It's magnetic. You put your fingers towards the edge of each of the panels, and then you can pop them with a little bit of force because it is magnetic, as I mentioned, and then you can lift the front and the rear panel up and away from the case. The top panel is exactly the same. It's magnetic. You want to tilt up the back edge, and then you can lift that up and then away from the case. Finally, the front panel is the same again. You'll want to pull away the top edge, which is also magnetic, and you can lift that up and then away from the case. Because of the nature of the MasterFrame 600, almost everything is removable, especially that Cooler Master logo. It's very easy to do. You want to peel back the front mesh for the filter. There's a single screw. You can loosen that. You can rotate the little clip, and then you can pull the Cooler Master logo from the front of your case. I just like removing it because I think it looks a lot cleaner without any logos. Going back to those filters, there are 3 dust filters. There's one on the top panel, one on the front panel, and then there's another on the side panel, which I forgot to film. Sorry guys, but yeah, there is one on that silver side panel as well. For the front IO, there's a power button, there's a power light, which is also a combined disk activity light. There's 2 5 gigabit USB Type A ports, there's a 20 gigabit USB Type C port, a combined headphone and microphone jack, and a reset button. In terms of the case wiring, we've got a 5 gigabit USB Type A cable, there's a 20 gig USB Type C cable, there's a SATA power connector for the RGB controller, there's a 3-pin 5V addressable RGB pass-through cable for that RGB controller as well, there's PWM control for that controller, as well as the front panel connector for all the lights and the switches, as well as the front panel audio cable. As mentioned, the MasterFrame 600, well, at least in this version, has an included RGB controller. It has 4 PWM fan inputs and 4 3-pin 5V addressable RGB connections. As for storage, in the MasterFrame 600, you can have 3 2.5-inch drives or a combination of those and 2 3.5-inch drives. As mentioned earlier, here is where the case gets a little bit confusing and kind of cool. You'll notice there are a bunch of rails connected as cross members, and there's also vertical rails. All of these can be moved to basically any configuration you want inside the constraints and the confines of the case itself. Each edge of the case has plenty of holes to move everything. Even the vertical edges also have a lot of different holes. So basically what you can do, you can move any of the internal frame to any position you like. There's too many combinations here, and you can do a lot of really cool things, but I think this is kind of what makes it not as enticing, because there's just too many options, and you'd really have to plan out all of your hardware before building anything to make this work. The biggest downside for the MasterFrame 600 isn't all of that adjustability. Don't get me wrong, that's really, really cool, but these corner pieces are riveted into place and you can't move them, meaning it kind of changes what you can do with this case. If we take a look at the back, you can see the power supply bracket is at the bottom. Then there's the midsection for the expansion slots, and then you have the top section for the motherboard IO. All of this can be moved around in any order you like. Not that you'd want to do that because it probably wouldn't work, but you could if you really wanted to.
As for motherboard support, the MasterFrame 600 supports motherboards from ITX up to SSI EEB. However, for that full compatibility, you do need to remove quite a few brackets internally. But it is possible because, again, this is just a big old frame. We're using the AORUS X870 Stealth Ice, as well as the Ryzen 9 9950X with 32 gigs of RAM and a Samsung 9100 Pro for storage. The power supply shroud is fully adjustable as well, but to install a power supply in the default configuration, you need to remove this panel here with 3 screws, and then you slide the power supply in through the main compartment of the case, and then you can screw it up like you would with a regular power supply from the rear side. In this version of the case, there are 4 pre-installed fans. There's a single Cooler Master Sickle Flow 120mm addressable RGB fan on the rear, and then there's 3 140mm sickle flows at the front. All of the fans on the silver version of the case are addressable RGB. As well as that, all of the fans are fully PWM controllable. However, where the case gets interesting is the mounting for fans. Now, again, it is quite confusing because there's lots of different combinations, but just to give you a bit of a summary, you can do 120mm fans, 140mm fans, as well as 200mm fans. And that's basically all you really need to know about fan compatibility, because everything can be moved around with these brackets here. It also shows you the measurements for what size fans screw into each of these brackets. At the top, the default configuration will allow for either 3 120mm fans, 3 140mm fans, or 2 200mm fans. As you can see here with the build that I decided to do, I just used a 360mm liquid cooler because I still think this will be what most people will use with this case, even with all of the crazy configurations and compatibility. However, as usual, your mileage may vary. Actually, in Australia, we use kilometers because, yeah, metric is better. Keep in mind where the blanking plates are next to where the motherboard tray is. Those plates can be removed and you can install more fans there as well. And you can do 3 120mm fans or 3 140mm fans, or even up to another 420mm radiator on the side. As for GPU support, I bet you it's no surprise that the MasterFrame 600 will support GPUs up to 485mm. That's essentially the entire size of the internals of the case. So yeah, massive graphics card support here. As well as that, the MasterFrame 600 does include this GPU support bracket here, and it can be moved anywhere in the case. So if you wanted to use it for some weird exotic use, you could also do that too. I decided to install it down the bottom here, and you can see me just adjusting it to hold this gargantuan 5090 in place. As for the cable management, yeah, it's not that good, but there is plenty of space behind the motherboard tray. You've got about 43mm behind there to jam all your cables in. The reality is you're not going to be looking at any of this anyway. Just put on the side panel and you're good to go. Speaking of putting on the side panel, let's put all the panels back on. I got to be honest, although I do have my reservations with the MasterFrame 600, it's pretty freaking gorgeous. It is a beautiful looking case and the build quality is stunning.
All right, let's take a look at the thermals. What you're seeing on your screen right now is the thermals for this configuration of the MasterFrame 600. The thermals are pretty good, I can't lie. But as I said with our last case review, we're at the point, and it's kind of an inflection point with case design, where we're seeing the same thermals for every single case across the board. Airflow seems like a thing of the past in the way that most cases are just pretty good at it now. And to mess it up, given what we've learned about case design over the last 10 years, would just be a big rookie move. But the MasterFrame 600, like I said, really, really good thermals. And I can imagine that this, in a different configuration, will also have really good thermals. So I've got to say, good work, Cooler Master. You understood the assignment with airflow. It's really, really good. If you're interested in any of the parts in this build, there's a PC part picker list down below, as well as Amazon links. So if you want to buy any hardware, it does help out the channel quite a bit, and we can buy Bindi some food because she's a cat and she needs food.
She'll tell you that.
She'll yell it at you. She'll be like, hey dude, feed me. All right, what are my thoughts on the MasterFrame 600? Well, you kind of gathered what my thoughts are from the intro of the video and probably talked a little bit about it so far, but to be honest, this case is a little confusing because while modularity is really good and it gives you a lot of different options, there's just too many options and it can be confusing for someone who's looking at building it in this case. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, every single fan size you can imagine is compatible with this case, right? So if you wanted to put a bunch of 200mm fans at the front and at the top at the same time, you could, but then you have to air cool it because there's no 400mm liquid coolers, right? So there's a lot of weird combinations you can do with the MasterFrame 600. Now, if you wanted to change the orientation, it's really good. You can move the power supply basically any way you want. This rail system is fantastic, and we saw this kind of with the Frame 4000D from Corsair as well, and the Frame 5000D, which is coming up. Our review's coming for that really soon. We just haven't got around to it. But the fact that like changing GPU orientation just by taking out 6 screws at the back and rotating the bracket, it's really, really cool, guys. Don't get me wrong, I really, really like this entire complete modularity, but there's a couple weird design choices that make this confusing and frustrating. What do I mean by that? Well, these corners here, they're riveted in. I can't just take them out and make the case shorter. I couldn't just like 3D print this section here and then make it shorter. I know it's not the point of the case, but there are people who like looking at these things and say, hey, what can I really do with this if I want to mod it? And the limitation is really these corner pieces here. Not only that, building in this case is pretty frustrating, especially if you're wanting to use the included rear fan because you can't even plug it in with the cable length of the fan. I changed the rear fan to a 120mm Cooler Master Mobius fan, and even that cable is too short. And the thing is, you could argue that you could move the RGB controller to another location, but then you can't plug in the front fans. So it's just, yeah, it's a little bit weird as to why they didn't just give us fans with longer cables, considering that's what that's the easiest solution, just have longer cables on the fan. And I get why. The reason is because these fans have a set cable length when you buy them out of the box, and Cooler Master just said, hey, these are the fans we already make. We're not gonna redesign cable lengths for one case. Let's just chuck whatever we've got in stock. If you must know, the way that these deals work, right? I think maybe I've talked about this, but when the business deals happen, when companies decide to use fans, what they'll do is be like, hey, they'll all be sitting down, having drinks, having dinner, and they'll be like, we've bought 1 million of these fans, now we need to figure out what to do with them. And that's kind of like why we see a lot of fans included with cases, like they've got 1 million, like quite literally 1 million of them, they need to move them somehow, and that's kind of what happened with this. They didn't have to include the fans, and to be honest, I wouldn't have included fans with this case because it actually adds to a thing that I don't like about it, and the fact that it has included fans. Does that make sense? It's supposed to be a super modular case. It doesn't need to include them, right? However, if I was to include fans, it would only be 200mm fans, right? Because Cooler Master's like famous for doing 200mm fans. It makes sense for them to include them. The fact that their MasterFrame case doesn't have 200mm fans is a little confusing. Anyway, the materials are fantastic. Like the build quality of this thing is epic. It is so nice. And in this silver color, it is freaking gorgeous. I kind of talked about this at Computex as well. I feel like the direction Cooler Master is going right now is really, really good. Like I really like this idea, but instead of make it yours, it should just be make it yourself. And that's kind of how this case feels. Like, oh, I just make it myself. Like, you know, That's fine. I really don't have a problem with this case overall, but it is really annoying to build in. It is. It just is. It just is. Back connector support's good though. Like, I'm just rambling because I've just got so many thoughts about like, it just feels a little incomplete. It's so close. It's so close. I wish they would have asked for a bit more feedback from people like me on this, because initially I did talk to Cooler Master about this directly, like to their HQ about designs like this. And they did ask for my advice, but they didn't listen to any of it. So yeah, I mean, they don't have to. And people get mad when I say things like, oh, you know, like I had a hand in this and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is they ask me all the time. All these manufacturers ask me what they should be doing because we've done it. So yeah, like we build with cases, and the case designers who are doing this full time, they don't necessarily build with all vendors' cases. We do. We see all the weird stuff that goes on in the cases. Anyway, I'm rambling. This case is actually pretty good, really frustrating, but if you really, really want to build in it, I think you should. If you're interested in the price, $199 US and 299 Aussie dollars. The Aussie price came down by about 70 or 80 bucks because I'm pretty sure they brought a bunch of these in and they're kind of hard to move. The price is actually pretty expensive for what it is, but the quality is really freaking good. Here's what I think about Cooler Master as a whole at the moment. I think they're doing the right thing. I think their course correction from stepping back from the lifestyle stuff that they were doing over the last couple of years to straight up well-polished cases, I think this is the right move. And it's almost like they're starting again in a good way. So I reckon at Computex next year, or whenever they show us some more cases, they're going to be better than this. And this is already pretty good, but yeah, it's just so close to being really, really good. The price is a bit up there, but I get it. The raw materials would be pretty insane because this is really well built.